Hi, my name is Dr. Denise, and this is this week's A Dose from Dr. Denise, where I hope to teach, show, and inspire you how to release your God-given health and life potential. Happy Sunday. It's another beautiful day here in Southeast Texas. I'm really enjoying it, and I have a really cool message for you today. I want to talk to you about two very serendipitous things that happened to me over the last several months that really got me into my office. And needless to say, I'm standing in front of this absolutely gorgeous piece of artwork that was commissioned for my office, A Dose from Dr. Denise, which is a chiropractic and a mindfulness practice. And I want to talk to you about those two events and really encourage you as well to look in your life to see what events are happening that perhaps you're overlooking, but that are very much meant to be in your path. And I think sometimes we just have to open our eyes a little bit more. You know, for many years, Dr. Wayne Dyer would speak at a chiropractic seminar, a very world-renowned chiropractic seminar called Parker, and it was often in Las Vegas. And so I got to see Dr. Wayne Dyer speak live in person about a half a dozen times before he passed away, which I think was maybe 3 years ago this summer. And Wayne Dyer would talk about coincidences in your life. And even though we have the word coincidence and we associate it with just a random event, he would very much say that that's just a misnomer, because the actual, or misunderstanding, it's not a misnomer. The word coincidence means two right angles coinciding, coming together. So coincidences, I like to call them as God winks. I didn't make that up. I'm sure I read that somewhere. So what I want to talk to you about today is two God winks that happened to me, and then I want to summarize three beliefs I have, if you will, about the coincidences that happen in our life, things that we should really keep to the forefront of our mind every day. I record a video, about a 10-minute video. I typically record them on Sundays so that they're fresh, and throughout the week I listen to God and I get inspired by different messages, and then I hope to say what God would want me to say every Sunday. So if you like these messages, do share them with others, and like my page, A Dose from Dr. Denise. So what are two coincidences that happened to me to get me into this practice? So Steve and I moved down here to Southeast Texas at the end of April, and I have to tell you, I was really happy to take a break physically from chiropractic. Chiropractic can be, and it is in our family, because we all give pretty strong adjustments, a very physical sport, if you will. It is definitely a physical career. I had a bad tennis elbow. I had really serious right heel pain that was not improving, and I even had some steroid shots, and so I was hurting and I needed a break physically. So I was really glad to have that break. But come about 3 months into our move down here, my sons are back at Rutgers, my husband's working 12, 14 hours a day. And as much as I enjoyed the piece, I knew that I needed to get myself back into my passion, into my work. So I began to look at different rental spaces. And I came across one that's about 3 miles from here that I liked, but the landlord was not getting back to me in a timely manner. I had called 3 or 4 times, so did my realtor, and I just knew that it wasn't the right space. And so I believe so strongly that you have to allow things to unfold and not force fit them. You know, I force fitted before square pegs in round holes, and that doesn't work. So I wanted to wait for a space to show up, and so this space was one of those coincidences. I was in the dry cleaners, and it's called Calder Cleaners. And I asked John, I said, John, you know, he's the owner. I said, keep an eye out for me, or keep an ear out. I'm looking to rent about 1,000 square foot space to open up a new chiropractic practice. And he said, you know, my landlord's name is Don, and here's his phone number. I don't know what spaces he has available, but he might be a great contact. So, you know, I wrote that down, and within 5 minutes, my realtor in Beaumont, Texas, who was a wonderful woman, her name was Margaret Broussard, and she called me within 5 minutes, and she said, Denise, I think I found a space for you, and it's about 800 square feet, and the landlord is Don Johnson. So I knew immediately that that was definitely my sign, definitely my coincidence. And so long story short, I found the space, and 3 months ago I started to do the build out. Well, not only is the space perfect, but two doors down is a yoga studio that has been amazing for me. It's called Beaumont Power Yoga, and that in itself has helped heal my heel. Enough downward dogs in the heat has helped do that. Right next door is a florist, and years ago I had a practice with my brother that there was a florist right next door to us, right across the parking lot, that we had a wonderful relationship. So I knew that that was a good sign. 2 doors down in the other direction is a used bookstore, and for anyone who knows me, you know I'm an avid reader. I like to read 1, 2, 3 books a week. Sometimes I got 3 going at one time, and so that was wonderful. And they're right across the parking lot. There's a reflexology massage studio, so that's incredible. And lo and behold, the dry cleaners that I found has another shop in this center. So all these things came together to know that this was the right spot. But the even bigger coincidence that happened to me is this piece of artwork behind me. So I knew that I wanted to commission a piece of artwork for this office to make it special and you know, just to sear it in my heart of how awesome it is that I was opening this practice. Here in Beaumont, Texas, there are light boxes at every corner that there's a street light, and they're, you know, like 5 foot high by 3 foot wide, and artists have been commissioned. They're paid $100 to paint these light boxes. Some look really good and some look, you know, not so good. But there's one in particular that's about a mile from here that I fell in love with. In fact, I drove by it frequently because I started going to a chiropractor here because I think it's so important that we practice what we preach. And I would drive by this light box and it looked like mosaic sunflowers. So I started to do a little digging to find this artist, and she was nowhere to be found. I found out who she was, but she did not have any social media presence. So I had just pulled over to look at the light box and to see if I could find a little bit more information, and lo and behold, I couldn't. And that day I was going to a mahjong game, and I've talked about this before, this tile game. So I go in, and one of the women there is holding up open a magazine, a local magazine, and isn't a picture of the light box that I was just looking at there with a description of the author, or excuse me, of the artist. Her name is Inez Alvidrez. Well, one thing led to another, and I started looking for her again on social media. And don't you know, like the day before Inez established an Instagram account. And so again, another coincidence. I met with Inez, we bonded immediately. We have very similar paths. I mean, very different careers, but similar paths. We were absolutely destined to meet, and I was able to give her my little logo in a JPEG, and over my shoulder is what she was able to create. And if you watched my post from a few days ago, it was a very emotional moment for me when I opened up this art that she made for me. And so we've since met for coffee, and it's an amazing relationship. So my point today is that, you know, there will be things that show up in your life that you have to pay attention to. And we're so quick in the hustle bustle of everyday life to miss these God winks, and yet they're amazing, especially if we really tune in, because sometimes those God winks are paths that we are meant to take, and we have to listen. So the 3 things that I want to tell you in order for you to pay attention to these God winks are, and I wrote them down, is the first is, you know, we're in this world where we want to figure it all out, and we won't. We will never, ever, ever, ever figure it all out. We'll never understand why there's hate in the world, and why a tragedy that happened in Pittsburgh, as it did, I believe it was yesterday, happens. We don't understand this world, and so we have to stop trying to figure it out. I just want to vibrate at a level of love, and I want to try to get in tune with God as much as possible. And when God winks, I want to wink back, and I want to pay attention, so I know that I'm not in control of this thing called life. Number 2 is that in order to do that, I must spend daily time in prayer. And so I just so encourage you to carve out 15 minutes a day and just absolute silence, spending time with God. I look at the Lord as my best friend. And I know that sounds odd for some of you that perhaps don't have a spiritual practice, but you know, just because I don't see a physical presence doesn't mean I don't feel the Lord. I feel God. I feel a presence. I feel an energy. Sometimes it's a tingling. Sometimes it's an energy. Sometimes it makes me weep. And what I do know is the more time that I spend with God, the more I feel his presence. And when I don't spend time with God, the more I absolutely lose or avoid or miss those God winks, if you will. And I don't want to miss the God winks anymore. And the third point is that we just simply need to trust. And that's very hard in today's world because we want to be in control of everything. But I decided in this next chapter of my life to just be in trust. And because I did that, I'm standing 6 months later of having moved here in an office that I created with a lot of help, but also with God's blessing. And I just feel incredibly grateful for that. So this week's dose from Dr. Denise is all about paying attention to those coincidences, those God winks, those serendipitous events that occur that could have profound meaning and direction in your life, and you have to pay attention to those. So let me close in prayer. Lord, thank you for this most amazing day. We want to pray for all those that are hurting at such a deep, profound level that we cannot understand, at the loss of life in Pittsburgh. Pray for these families. All of us keep them in our hearts and minds over the upcoming days, weeks, months. If we're close to those families, let's do all that we can for them. Let's learn to vibrate at a level of love. Lord, we know that hate doesn't solve hate, and we need to just love on people. People are hurting in this world, Lord. So please just show up in a big way and manifest in a big way so that we can vibrate at a higher level and love and serve a lot, because we understand that that's what it's all about. We ask this all in your name. Have a wonderful week. Peace out, and I'll see you next Sunday.